This is an interesting story about Tom Keifer that I just remembered. I remember when I was dealing with Tom, this was at the height of his success. I mean, he was selling out stadiums. And I remember him coming over to TechCom, where I was working selling the pro audio gear. And we had, on the one side was the showroom of when you came in, and then there was a door across the hallway that was the warehouse. So when he came into the showroom, he I mean, he attracts attention wherever he stood, and at that time he really attracted a bunch of attention. So I just took him. I said, "Hey, let's go to the warehouse." So we walked over to the warehouse, and we had all these big shelves, and we were standing in between the shelves, and we were just talking about some gear, and I was asking him. I said, "Well, why are you?" Because he was on tour with the Bullet Boys, and Winger. And I said, "Why are you on tour with these guys?" I said, "Hey, you could fill it by yourself." And he sat me down and he said, "Let me explain to you how this whole thing works." And he was very kind in explaining this to me, and he didn't have to. But he said, if you fill up the stadium, say 60 to 70%, you get a certain pay. If you fill it up to 80 or 90%, you get way more pay. If you fill the whole stadium and there's no more seats, you get a ton more pay. So he says, I was looking for bands that would bring in that extra 10 to 20% just so we could fill the stadiums all the way up to make the maximum amount of money that we wanted to make. And I said, oh, okay, now that makes sense. I said, I didn't understand. He said, yeah, I mean, he says, I didn't know this either, George. He says, this has all been explained to me, but from a business point of view, putting up the right lineup so you can pull in the right amount of people to fill up that stadium makes all the difference in the world on how you would get paid. And I thought, wow, didn't know that at all. And even at the beginning when he was touring and even when they were really big, they weren't flying places. They were taking tour buses. And he was telling me that he was being very careful with the money because he was watching other bands at the time that were just taking airplanes, private jets and that. And he says they were just burning up their money. They were making the money and burning it up as fast as they got it. And he says, I just wanted to make sure what I made, I kept for the most part. I mean, he did spend some money on he got a house and he got a nice car, but nothing crazy expensive like some of these other guys I've dealt with. So he was being very considerate, very thoughtful ahead of time when he was, at the peak of his success. And I thought that was very, very interesting. So there you go. Interesting story.